Since it first appeared on our shores back in the late 70s, VW's Golf GTi has won a firm place in many a heart. It's a fantastic all-round motor. It looks the part, you know it's going to last, it's practical, but above all, it's always been fantastic fun to drive.
The Mark I Golf GTi was closely based on the standard Golf, an excellent if slightly boring car. But an uprated suspension, a 1.6 litre fuel-injected engine and sports trim turned it into a pocket rocket.
During its lifetime, the Mark I changed very little, apart from the addition of a 1.8 engine that was carried over to the Mark II. Now this model had got a little bit chunky around the midriff, but hey, don't we all as the years go by? But apart from that, all the important bits that made the Golf GTi so popular were retained. Behind the wheel, the Mark II does show its age a little bit. There's no power steering. Of course you don't get ABS as standard. And believe me, the ride is extremely harsh compared to modern cars. But despite all of that, it is fantastic fun to drive. But because of its age, it means that there are some positive points. The engine hasn't been strangled by that catalytic converter. The steering feels very direct, you get plenty of feedback and you know exactly what the tyres are up to. And the harsh ride does make you feel like you're going very fast indeed. This is the perfect car if you're young and you don't mind roughing it just a little bit. If that's you, then you will have an absolute ball. Unfortunately, all good things have to come to an end, so we waved goodbye to Mark II and we said hello to a rather different Mark III version. This time around it seems those Volkswagen engineers have gone all middle-aged. You may get an extra rotund body with the Mark III version and you get more refinement and room inside, but at what cost? Well, you feel it in the handling. There's a 2-litre engine in this version and it's got the same brake as the Mark II, but you really don't feel it. You've got to work it and keep the revs right up high to get the most out of the power. But having said that, in this version, you get a good all-round car and you are getting the GTi badge for not much extra cost. And then there were 4, or should that be 5? Because alongside the conventional Mark IV GTi, there's now, heaven forbid, a diesel version as well. Now I know that diesels and the GTi legend should really be kept apart, but give this car a bit of a chance. In terms of ride and handling, it feels no different to the Mark IV petrol GTi. But where the engine's concerned, it's a completely different ballgame. For a start, there's an awful lot more torque and it comes in much lower down the engine range. Now in many modern cars you really have to work the engine. You've got to get the revs up high, drop down the gears to get any power out of it. That's not the case with the TDI. You get an instant power surge just when you need it. And out of corners there's very little that can keep up with it. Believe me, it's fantastic fun. Okay, I've got to admit, there is a bit of rattle and roll when you first start up, and at low speeds it does sound a teeny bit like a bus. But let's get on to the subject of economy. This car will get you from A to B as fast as a petrol GTi version, but believe me, it will cost you an awful lot less.
The new Golf GT TDI PB has 115 brake horsepower, an increased load and torque, a 6-speed gearbox, and all the sports trim you'd expect on a GTI. And it's all very impressive.
VW's Golf GTI is a perfect example of evolution. But which version is the best? Well, that's an impossible question to answer because each of them offers something very different. If I was 19 again, well, I'd want the hard ride and the excitement of the Mark II version. But I'm not. And these days, I like my creature comforts. And for that reason, I'm surprising even myself because I'd have to plump for that very torquey diesel.